agenda. I'm your host, Christine Dorchak. Tonight is the second in a series of programs on primate research. As I mentioned last week, primates are our closest genetic relatives. As a matter of fact, chimpanzees differ in their DNA structure by just over 1%. Because of their genetic similarity, monkeys, baboons, chimpanzees, and other primates are used in medical research. But it is just because of this similarity that many people, like my guest tonight, feel that they should not be used in research at all. Rick Bogle is on my program this evening. He is a teacher from Oregon. He is now touring the United States with his message about primate research. He has just finished a 9-day stint at our own research facility in Southborough. This is the New England Primate Research Center. This is a Harvard-affiliated center, and he's here tonight to tell us about his experiences there. Thanks for coming on the show, Rick.
I'm really glad to be here.
Thanks a lot. It's been a long day for you. You just decamped a few hours ago, so appreciate you coming down here. Can you tell me a little bit about your activities vis-a-vis primate experimentation during the last few months?
Well, let's see. Right after school got out, it was in, when was it? It was June, the first week of June. I was in Portland, and I camped in front of the Oregon Regional Primate Research Center for 9 days. When I got done with that one, the following month I stayed in front of the Washington Regional Primate Research Center for 10 days. And like you said, I just got done with the one here in Southborough, and I was there for 9 days. I camped out and talked to everybody that came by. There were a couple of demonstrations. I think on Sunday we had 60 people come out, hold signs, talk to neighbors, passers-by. So that's what I've been doing. And there's 7 of these centers, so I'll be going to each one of them.
And tell me about who you're traveling with. This is one example.
This is Jimby, and what's happening is I have it's just an idea. I have this group of stuffed monkeys that's called the Ape Army, and usually when I go someplace, people, when they find out what's going on, they can't go with me from place to place because they all have to work. I'm taking a year's leave of absence to do this. And so they'll give me a stuffed monkey to take with me. And I have over 100 now, and I've gotten about 30, 35 at each place I've gone to. And so most of them ride in a large plastic bag in the back of the truck, but Jimby rides up front. So.
And the purpose is to symbolize all of the primates used in experimentation?
It is, and it catches people's eyes. It's when they're driving by, they stop, they see all these stuffed monkeys out there, they stop and find out what's going on. And they also, because it's somebody gave me each one of these, it represents, even though maybe there's only 50 or 60 people out front, whereas I traveled 3,000 miles to come to Boston, everybody else that had been at the other places, they couldn't drop what they were doing and drive 3,000 miles. So, you know, so there's 60 people there demonstrating, and there's also an extra 70 monkeys sitting there that sort of each one of those represents somebody that couldn't be there today. So hopefully as we move around, there's more and more and more, and you know, so I guess in the symbolism of the thing is that maybe by the time we get to Atlanta and there's 1,000 monkeys, they'll know that there's 1,000 people that aren't very pleased with what's going on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that's the idea behind the Ape Army.
And how many how many places have you visited so far?
I've been 3.
And how many more are on?
There's 4 more. There's 7 regional primate research centers in the continental United States. It turns out there's also one in the Caribbean.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Now, currently, how many primates are used in experimentation in the United States?
It looks like there's about 50,000 that are used any one particular year in the United States, and that's since about, the way I can read the information, since about 1972 that they've been keeping very close records. It's fluctuated a little bit, a few thousand every year, but we're running about 50,000 monkeys and apes a year used for biomedical research in the United States.
In all types of studies.
In all types of studies, that's right. From psychiatric studies to pain studies to amputation studies, heart studies, cancer studies, AIDS studies, you name it, and we're using monkeys to study it.
Last week I showed on the program the de-efferentation studies that were performed by Dr. Edward Taub.
Right.
Is anyone still doing de-efferentation?
I don't know. What happens is I go from center to center. I become sort of a thumbnail little mini expert on that center, and so I know things that have gone on at the Portland Center, in University of Washington, and now here at Southborough. So if there's differentiation going on in other places, I don't know about it yet, but
hopefully not.
Hopefully not.
That was really a hideous expose that I showed on this program earlier.
Was that Silver Springs monkeys?
Yes, the Silver Spring monkeys, and I'm sure a lot of you who saw that program realized the cruelty, the level of the cruelty that's involved, and that was a federally funded laboratory.
Right.
In general, can you tell me what the conditions are at federal labs? Do you think they're improving?
It's hard to know whether they're improving. I can tell you this, that a year and a half ago, the Washington Regional Primate Center was fined $30,000 for the conditions at its facility.
And we're talking minimum conditions, I would think.
We're talking minimum conditions, but what happened was when the APHIS inspector, who supposedly does an annual inspection, that would be the Animal Plant Inspection Service. It's a department. It's a branch of the Department of Agriculture.
Right.
They discovered that 5 baboons, I might have the number, it could have been 4 or 6, but I think it was 5. There were 5 baboons had died of exposure. They'd been left outside over winter. They died. There was an undisclosed species of monkey, a single monkey that had died of thirst.
Obvious negligence then.
They talked about the feces in the cages and all of those sorts of things. At the Southborough Center, I haven't heard anything about filth per se, but the problems that they have there seem to be focused on psychotic and neurotic behaviors. It looks like they, according to their reports, the things that they publish, they say that they have a large population of monkeys that are individually housed. Monkeys that are housed alone in cages with no contact with any other monkeys. These monkeys,
so the ability to socialize is very important to them as it is to us.
It's more important to primates than it is to us, at least
right?
most primates. They, from the time that they're born, when a human baby is born, sometimes the mother lays it in the crib and goes and irons or goes to the store or leaves it with a daycare person and goes to her job or whatever the case may be. But she's not holding it against her body 24 hours a day. When a monkey is born, from the time it's born until the time it's toddling around, it's with its mother all the time. Then, as it lives its adult life, they groom each other constantly. Right now, if you and I were monkeys, we'd be sitting here touching each other and rubbing each other, and we'd be making that physical contact. Humans aren't as social as most monkeys are. So they take these monkeys and they are leaving them now in individual cages, and what happens is they start developing neurotic behaviors. They start rocking, they start holding themselves because they need that contact. They start doing things called bumping, where they're constantly bumping into the side of the cage. And then...
Rick, I think we've got to go. Hi, you've reached Animal Agenda.
Hi, Christine and Rick. I'm calling. I have a question. I'm an animal rights activist myself, and my question is, why primates? I think that's such a difficult task to take on where there's so many other areas, where you can actually see results. I mean, taking on the medical community like that must be so difficult. What was it that inspired Rick to take on, a primate project?
Sure. I read about 2 things, really. 2 things. I heard a veterinarian speak in Portland named Sherry Speed, and she talked about the conditions at the Oregon Regional Primate Research Center and the experiments that were going on, and they were just beyond belief. The other thing that happened almost simultaneously was I read a book called The Great Ape Project, and it's a series of essays by very well-known scientists, and it points out the clear similarities between great apes and human beings. And it seems to me that if you can, we're talking to chimpanzees now with sign language, and where they're laughing at their own jokes. They're tricking us, they're lying to us, they're being friendly to us. We're so genetically similar, some people suggest we may even be able to interbreed. It seems to me that the line that we're going to draw as to who we're going to, or what beings we're going to tie down and experiment on, the line certainly is past primates. What I tell people when I talk to them, the people that aren't ready to hear the whole story, I tell them I don't know where the line is. But it's so clear to me that the line is, that human circle of concern has got to include chimpanzees, gorillas, orangutans, and I think monkeys as well. And so you're left with sort of the problem. If they're so much like us, then we have to afford them some sort of rights. Most people aren't ready to afford rats or frogs or dogs those rights. We can talk to these guys now. We can have two-way conversations with them, and it just seems to me that if I can sit here and talk to Christine, that it's not. I can't then tie her down on the table and put electrodes in her head.
Right.
And so if I can talk to a chimpanzee, then there's something going on there that it makes it now clearly immoral that I shouldn't be able to.
And this is the reason you've taken a year of your life to tour the facilities. Yeah. To me, the primate issue is. To me, the argument is over. If you educate yourself, I really believe there's nothing to talk about anymore. It's a done deal. Of course, the National Institutes of Health are going to fight this tooth and nail because there's big money involved here. There's hundreds of millions of dollars a year involved in this. So I mean, it certainly is a hard fight. But if I'm going to beat my head against the wall, I think I ought to beat it against something that has a chance of that I can knock down. I think the primate thing is the way to go. I think it's the wedge issue that all the animal stuff has been looking for years. Well, it certainly opened my eyes to something that was perceived as very esoteric. It's actually extremely close to me. That's the whole point of it. Right. I'm a primate, you're a primate, right. So it seems very artificial to draw a line and say, okay, well, you're not a human primate, so I can experiment on you. Yeah. It seems very arbitrary to me. It does to me, too. Definitely. What is your next stop going to be? Where are you going from Boston? I'm off to Madison, Wisconsin. First I'll go back to Oregon. I have a bunch of personal business to take care of, another 3,000 miles to get home. And then I'll drive back out to Madison, Wisconsin. And Madison, Wisconsin is the home of Harry Harlow. Harry Harlow is the man who pioneered the maternal deprivation studies, where he took baby monkeys, took them away from their mothers, and locked them away, sometimes for up to 2 years. And it seems to me that what we learned from that research was that monkeys would experience the same sort of depression, the same sort of psychoses that we would expect a human to suffer if they were in the same situations. Mm-hmm. So I think that the power in that research is that it points out exactly how human-like they are, how susceptible they are to the same sorts of mental stress that you or I would be susceptible to. Anyway, I'm going there. After I get done in Madison, I'm off to Louisiana, down in the New Orleans area. From there, I'm off to Davis, California, and then finally I'm going back to Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia. That's where Yerkes is. That's the Yerkes Regional Primate Research Center. Oh, we've got another call. Hi, you've reached Animal Agenda. Well, that was definitely not a welcome call. Sorry about that. Maybe he was talking to me. Yerkes is the only place that uses great apes, chimpanzees, gorillas, and orangutans, and so what I'm urging everybody that can come to only one of these to certainly try to make it to Yerkes. There was a very big demonstration down there recently. Yeah, there was. That we were really feeling badly about not being able to go down for, but maybe we Boston activists can get together and head down to Atlanta and join the team. I think it would be a great thing. Yeah, this is going to end. The primate thing is, to me, it's the thing to hit hard on and not to let up until everybody can understand how important the issue is. What are some of the experiences you've had with meeting different people on the road? Yeah, I've had almost no negative reaction. Lots of times people come up and say, "But what about saving people?" And almost universally, when I start talking to them about the research, about the 25 years of the language acquisition research, the 30 years of psychological research, they say, "I didn't really understand that." And usually, so you're opening a lot of eyes. Oh, everybody's, sure. Hi, you've reached Animal Agenda.
Hello. Yeah, I just had a question for Rick. I'd like to know, are there any books that he can recommend on the primate research subject? Okay,
thanks for calling, Rick.
On primate research per se, the primate research stuff that I read are things that are published by the individual research centers on a thing called the CRISP database. And here locally, I can't tell you how to tell the gopher how to do that on your computer. You could contact the New England Annie Vivisection Society, and somebody there could tell you. As far as books are concerned, I would say you could read, I would certainly say read the Grade 8 Project. That's by Pete Singer and Paola Caviero, some Italian word, I don't know what it is. And another book that you might consider, this is sort of pro-vivisection, but I think it gives you an idea of why people think this should continue, and that would be The Monkey Wars.
Yep.
And that was...
Deborah Blum.
Okay, good, Deborah Blum.
You mentioned another one, Aping Science.
Aping Science will be hard to get a hold of unless you talk to, maybe we can find that address for you later. It's not a published book, it's an unpublished thing you have to order. It's published by a number of medical doctors that are working on this issue. Another one to read is Tales of Caliban, and that was co-authored by Jane Goodall. That should be fairly easy to find. That's specific to chimpanzees. Almost Human is a book. It's not about vivisection, but it's about the social life of baboons. Field Studies. I can't remember the author.
There's also some wonderful videos that people can check out.
Hideous videos people can check out.
Well, there's some hideous ones and some very informational videos put out by the Discovery Channel.
Oh.
I just picked up one. It's called People of the Forest, and it shows the chimpanzees and the colony that Jane Goodall has been working with for 30 years.
Right.
So that's very informational, and you'll be amazed at the socialization that is occurring among these primates. It's really quite touching.
Right.
So that was a good call. I know that you work a lot with the Liberation Collective. Is that a contact if people want more information? Do you have some organizations that you might point them to?
The Liberation Collective is a grassroots organization out of Portland, Oregon, and when I first got this idea, I talked to a number of groups, and they all thought it was kind of an odd deal that a sixth grade teacher would travel around the country and camp out in front of these places. And so they were all kind of leery, you know, oh God, he's a crazy or something like that. And so Liberation Collective in Portland became interested. They believed that all sort of liberation issues should be joined. Women's rights, human rights, animal rights, all of these things are really basically talking about the same issue.
Mm-hmm.
So people that wanted to contact or find out more about this particular thing that's going on as far as the Primate Freedom Tour, because certainly, should I give a number or something for that?
If you have one, yeah.
I do. It's Liberation Collective, and it's Post Office Box 9055, Portland, Oregon 97207. The telephone number is area code 503-230-9990.
Okay, and of course that's a lot to digest, so please feel free to call me off the air and I'll repeat that information. We do have yet another call. Hi, you've reached Animal Agenda.
Hi, I was just wondering how could I get involved with the primate research?
On the grassroots level?
Do you want to be a researcher, or do you want to...
Cabbage? What is it? Yeah, the degree or whatever.
Okay. Do you want me to answer that? Because I'm
Billy
local.
Burke, probably.
Yeah, I would recommend anyone interested in knowing more and then acting on their knowledge on primate research to contact Billy Burke. He's a local activist. He's now going to be collecting signatures for his petition to ban primate research within the city of Cambridge. His number is 625-1451. His name is Billy Burke. And you can actually go and see him any given night in Harvard Square. He's got an informational table set up. So anyone who's interested in just learning more should stop by Billy's table one night in Harvard Square. If they want to get really active on this, you can call Steve Baer or you can call me. Steve's number is 508-339-5339. Or you can call me off the air at 441-0909, extension 309. I'll be happy to send you any information you'd like. If you'd like to check out some books, Rick just gave a list of books that you might check out in order to kind of do a little bit of learning on your own. There's lots of different ways. You can use the internet. There's a few sites that you can check out there. So there are lots of ways right now where you can learn about this issue. I would encourage anyone who's listening to please give a call to Harvard University. Ask them to stop doing primate research. As we've mentioned, Southborough is a Harvard-affiliated research center. you should contact Neil Rudenstein. He's the president of Harvard University. You can write to him at Massachusetts Hall, Harvard University, Cambridge, Mass. 02138, and his number is 495-1502. And what you need to do is just tell him you do not support Harvard's participating in primate research. Well, here we've got another call. Hi, you've reached Animal Agenda.
Yes, hello. I just wanted to call to congratulate Rick on his wonderful work, what he's doing for the primates. And I think it's wonderful. I think you're a super person, Rick. I just need to ask you a question. I really like to get more involved. Is there a way I could get more involved, like join certain organizations to get myself more involved, because I really want to help?
Oh, in terms of organizations? Oh, sure. You can contact Neves in Boston. You can talk to Karen Zupko or Susan Sullivan. Their number is 523-6020. And you can also contact me off the air at 441-0909, extension 309, and I can direct you to some national organizations, and you can take part. Also, you can go down to Atlanta for the big demo.
And again, if you call Christine, she'll have information. If you want to travel around the country with me, I say, come on. But certainly try to come to Yerkes in Atlanta, and she'll have information on that. One thing I would say, besides calling Harvard University president or whoever, whatever address she gave you, call your senators and representatives, and call them every day, and call back the next day, and call and say, excuse me, I called yesterday because I want to see this closed down, and what are you doing about it? And keep calling. Call tomorrow and the next day and next week when you get up. You know, put it on your calendar. I'm going to call from this time to this time every day. And if enough of us call and enough of us become really a nuisance, maybe there'll be something that can happen.
Yep. Well, tell us your story about the fly in the windshield.
Well, there's a story of some huge semi truck driving down the turnpike. Some, I don't know, triple trailer kind of thing, hundreds of tons of freight on board, and all of a sudden this guy thinks he sees a wasp in the windshield, and he starts swinging at it and swatting at it, and the next thing you know, he runs off the road and wrecks, and turns out instead of it being a wasp, it was just a fly. And so even a small little thing like a fly can derail a megaton machine that seems like nothing in the world could ever stop it. So I think we have to become, the people of conscience, the people of compassion, the people that care about other beings, we have to become that fly and just drive the National Institutes of Health absolutely nuts.
And the National Institutes of Health, NIH, is the funding agent for research. In fact, Senator Kennedy just wrote an op-ed piece, and it's his belief that we should be funding NIH even more these days. So when you call Senator Kennedy, let him know that it's fine to give funding to NIH, but not for animal research. So I think we're coming to the end of the show. Rick, thank you so much for coming on. I'm sure that you've been a great catalyst while you've been here, and we promise we will just keep on working on this issue here in Cambridge, and hopefully a number of us will join you in Yerkes. And at what date will you be down at Yerkes?
Early December. I'm afraid to say for sure, but I think it's the 2nd or maybe the 4th. But I thank you for letting me be here, and so call your senators, call your representatives.
It's a local call. They have local offices.
And just be that fly. Run this stupid, crazy thing off the tracks.
Excellent. Okay, well, thanks very much for watching. I'll be back in 2 weeks with another edition of Animal Agenda.
I'm Alex Pacheco, founder of People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. In 1981, I ran my finger down a list of animal laboratories in Maryland, where I live, and found the laboratory closest to my home. It was called the Institute for Behavioral Research, IBR. The next day, I applied for a job there, and although I'd never worked in a laboratory before, I found myself working there within the week. And within 6 days, I was put in charge of 2 different experiments on the animals. IBR was 9 miles from the U.S. Capitol and less than 3 miles from the headquarters of the NIH, the National Institutes of Health. NIH is the single largest financer of animal experimentation in the world. And when I walked into IBR, NIH had already spent over 1.2 million tax dollars on the set of experiments that I was assigned to work on. The chief experimenter was a psychologist by the name of Edward Taub. Taub had conducted experiments on primates for 20 years when the photographs you're about to see were taken. This is a macaque monkey in a head restraint device made of steel. Here you see the effects of self-mutilation. This monkey is missing a number of his fingers, and you can note the hairless patches of scar tissue at the wrists. Most of the monkeys in these pictures have had one or more arms or legs surgically impaired by an operation called deafferentation, in which the nerves at the spine are severed, rendering one or more limbs useless. Through the use of electric shock, food deprivation, sight deprivation, and other negative stimuli, the primates are forced to regain the use of their crippled limbs. Even though attempts to confirm any tangible evidence of benefit to humans or to other animals have failed, the experimenter in this laboratory, Edward Taub, claims this research is useful for stroke victims and the mentally retarded. This is Chester, one of the most neurotic of the monkeys. His left leg has been deafferented. This is a conditioning chamber, a converted refrigerator with a plexiglass restraining device inside of it. The monkey is put inside this soundproof and lightproof chamber. An electrode is taped to his left ear or to either hand or foot. The monkey will then be given electric shocks, shocks which will continue until he uses his crippled arm. This monkey is on what is called a choke rod. His arms and legs have been shaved for the electrodes. Here, the monkey is being taken into the chamber. Most of the equipment is homemade and never goes through any safety testing. This accounts for additional injuries to the animals. This chamber has blood splattered on both walls and the ceiling. This is Paul. You can see 2 large open wounds on his left arm. These wounds were never treated. Here is Paul about a month later. One morning, I found that none of the animals had been fed for 3 days. 2 monkeys, named Paul and Hard Times, had collapsed to their cage floors. The experimenters poked their fingers at Hard Times and found he couldn't move. They gave him a bowl of juice, but his head fell into the bowl. I stood with Hard Times for 20 minutes, supporting his head to keep him from drowning in the juice as he attempted to drink. Paul had torn off all 5 fingers on one hand. His palm was shredded, and 3 bones could be seen sticking out of his palm. His hand had been reduced to a bloody stump. Another researcher dragged Paul from his cage, and without bothering to wash or clean the mutilated hand, simply sprinkled a mild antibiotic powder on it, applied 3 gauze pads, and taped it up. This slide shows Paul about a week after the incident. The bandage stayed on for about 3 weeks and was never changed. This is a close-up of what's left of Paul's hand. You can see his fingers, missing at the palm, protruding from the rotting bandage. This is Paul with another open wound above his bandage. This wound was also never treated. Some of the broken wires in his cage are visible here. Here is Paul approximately 1 month later. His hand is swollen at least twice its normal size. Note that his upper arm is heavily scarred from previous injuries, and tooth marks can be seen clearly. Also notice that this cage is less than 18 inches wide. All of the monkeys except Sarah were taken from the wild almost 5 years before these photographs were taken. They had spent every day since then in cages 17.5 inches wide and 36 inches deep. These highly intelligent and social animals are confined to barren cages which contain absolutely nothing, not even a resting board or anything to touch or manipulate.
There's only 50 or 60 people out front. Whereas I traveled 3,000 miles to come to Boston. Everybody else that had been at the other places, they couldn't drop what they were doing and drive 3,000 miles. So, so there's 60 people there demonstrating, and there's also an extra 70 monkeys sitting there that sort of each one of those represents somebody that couldn't be there today. So hopefully as we move around, there's more and more and more, and so I guess in the symbolism of the thing is that maybe by the time we get to Atlanta and there's 1,000 monkeys, they'll know that there's 1,000 people that aren't very pleased with what's going on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that's the idea behind the ape RNA.
And how many places have you visited so far?
I've been 3.
And how many more on?
There's 4 more. There's the first week of June. I was in Portland, and I camped in front of the Oregon Regional Primate Research Center for 9 days. When I got done with that one, the following month I stayed in front of the Washington Regional Primate Research Center for 10 days. And like you said, I just got done with the one here in Southborough, and I was there for 9 days. I camped out and talked to everybody that came by. There were a couple of demonstrations. I think on Sunday we had 60 people come out, hold signs, talk to neighbors, passers-by. So that's what I've been doing. And there's 7 of these centers, so I'll be going to each one of them.
And tell me about who you're traveling with. This is one example.
This is Jimby, and what's happening is I have
Rick Bogle is on my program this evening. He is a teacher from Oregon. He is now touring the United States with his message about primate research. He has just finished a 9-day stint at our own research facility in Southborough. This is the New England Primate Research Center. This is a Harvard-affiliated center, and he's here tonight to tell us about his experiences there. Thanks for coming on the show, Rick.
I'm really glad to be here.
Thanks a lot. It's been a long day for you. You just decamped a few hours ago, so appreciate you coming down here. Can you tell me a little bit about your activities vis-a-vis primate experimentation during the last few months?
Well, let's see. Right after school got out, it was in, when was it? It was June the 1st. It's just an idea. I have this group of stuffed monkeys that's called the Ape Army, and usually when I go someplace, people, when they find out what's going on, they can't go with me from place to place because they all have to work. I'm taking a year's leave of absence to do this. And so they'll give me a stuffed monkey to take with me. And I have over 100 now, and I've gotten about 30, 35 at each place I've gone to. And so most of them ride in a large plastic bag in the back of the truck, but Jimby rides up front. So.
And the purpose is to symbolize all of the primates used in experimentation?
It is, and it catches people's eyes. It's when they're driving by, they stop, they see all these stuffed monkeys out there, they stop and find out what's going on. And they also, because it's somebody gave me each one of these, it represents, even though maybe there's
Good evening and welcome to Animal Agenda. I'm your host, Christine Dorchak. Tonight is the second in a series of programs on primate research. As I mentioned last week, primates are our closest genetic relatives. As a matter of fact, chimpanzees differ in their DNA structure by just over 1%. Because of their genetic similarity, monkeys, baboons, chimpanzees, and other primates are used in medical research. But it is just because of this similarity that many people, like my guest tonight, feel that they should not be used in research at all.